Hey guys, Tom Barclay here, just trying to make my way back home from Tottenham Hotspur's excellent 3-0 win over Elfsborg. How joyous to report on a victory, and a good victory at that, on one that was made in Tottenham. 3 homegrown goal scorers, all scoring their first goal for the club in Dane Scarlett, Damola, Ajayi and Mikey. Brilliant night for the academy, as Ange Postecoglou said afterwards, and one that got them through into the last 16 of the Europa League. So all round a good night, apart from a potential injury to Radu Dragusin. But I suppose it wouldn't be Spurs this season without some sort of issues when it came to injuries. But let's focus on the positive. So, like I say, 3 kids, 3 academy graduates, and their 3 first goals. We know all about Mikey, given how much he's done this season in his breakthrough season, but he's still only 17 and he scored the last one. Probably a little less about Damola Ajayi, a 19-year-old. He's been on the bench of late due to the injury crisis, and he took his goal brilliantly. But it was Dane Scarlett who kicked it off, and it was a really interesting case when he came on. So Elfsborg had proved to be quite stubborn, very defensive, and Spurs were sort of struggling to break them down. When Dragusin got injured, on kind of Dane Scarlett, which was an interesting decision for Postecoglou, because it meant that he can't go out on loan again this season. He's been on loan at Oxford. He'd been recalled from Oxford because he wasn't getting enough game time. The plan had been to loan him out again this season, but now he's made an appearance for Spurs. Due to rules, he can't play for more than 3 teams in a season, so it means he's staying at Tottenham. So when he came on, you thought, oh, that is interesting. Also, given the fact that Spurs haven't signed any outfield players yet, although they're obviously in talks for one particular player he'll come on to. But what an impact he made, and based on the impact that Scarlett made, he probably wouldn't want to loan him out, really. So he comes on, and within 4 minutes, he scores the decisive breakthrough goal. A lovely ball from his fellow sub, Dane Scarlett, who'd been given a rest for the first half at least, came on at half time, and a triple sub from Postecoglou. Comes off the bench, great in-swing cross, and a great header from Scarlett, who's shown sort of fits and starts in pre-season, albeit his actual performances in pre-season were part of the reason why he dropped down the pecking order, was allowed to go on loan along with Alejo Veliz, and that was actually Will Lancashire who was kept back because he'd impressed so much in pre-season. But Scarlett came on, made a huge impact, and that was pretty much the game won, because Elfsborg basically playing 4-5-1, trying to hang on for a draw really, but it got better from there. Ajayi came on, a lovely little 1-2 with Scarlett, and a brilliant finish into the corner to make it 2-0. To sort of turn the night from being Scarlett's night to a shared night, I suppose, for the academy graduates. And that was definitely the case when Mikey, who started the game, who we know is such a talent, that's had problems with the virus this season, probably hasn't played as much as he'd hoped because of that, but you sort of forget how young he is at 17. And from the start of the game, he was driving the Elfsborg defence and playing really, really exciting, dangerous football from that perspective. And he got his goal, his first goal for the club, with a fine finish right into stoppage time. And Ange had called it right after the game. He said this was a night made in Tottenham, a night for the very proud night for the academy and for the club, one that the academy coaches and the players probably struggled to sleep at night after that because they'd be buzzing so much from it. And just a really, really great night all round after such a difficult time of late for Spurs. So before we get to the one downside of Dragusin, let's talk about the game. So Mikey Van der Ven was the big sort of headline-grabbing name going into this game, or decision, as he came back from his near 7-week layoff for a hamstring injury. Came into the team, started the game straight off. I kind of sensed he might do that. Postecoglou said he would get minutes, and I kind of sensed that he might get the start. He ended up playing 45 minutes, came off at half-time. That was all pre-planned. Ange said afterwards that he came through fine, no issues. But to be honest, in the first half he could have played with a cigar on, really. I mean, he actually was involved a lot because of Spurs being so dominant and sort of setting up attacks, but from a defensive side of point of view, there was next to nothing for him to deal with. In fact, the only real issue that Spurs had the whole game was when there was a moment where Elfsborg's attacker, the ball looped off Dragusin's foot, landed at the striker's feet, and he tried to sort of acrobatic or in the air, an acrobatic volley, which actually went pretty close at 0-0. So that was a moment. But apart from that, Elfsborg had pretty much showed nothing else. It was total domination, like I said, from Spurs' perspective. And in the end, their quality shone through in the end. I actually thought Sonny, who actually only played 45 minutes, came off at half time, had a really good game, and he's had a really difficult season. I've been critical of his form, but I think in the last 3 games he's actually played quite well. I thought he obviously got his 2 goals against Hoffenheim. I think he was probably the one positive when it came to the performance against Leicester. In the first half he was pretty good, played in the second half along with the whole Spurs team, but he was better there, and tonight he looked so sharp, really tricky feet, beating his wing back all ends up time and again. That guy will be dizzy after some of the twinkle-toed feet from Sonny today, and he sets up a couple of good chances in the first half, and just a really sharp. I mean, it is mediocre opposition, Elfsborg, or a team that aren't even in their domestic season at the moment. They're in the off season, albeit the 2 games they played competitively since December the 12th are in the Europa League, and they've won both of them 1-0, so they're no mugs, but Spurs that's above, and Sonny in particular looked absolute quality tonight. More of that please, Sonny, that'd be great if he can sort of sustain that. He was really good, but obviously tonight it's all about the kids. Right at the end of this game there were 4 teenagers on the pitch, Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, Ajayi and Moore of course, and then Scarlett's only 20. So a real great night for Spurs, which end up putting them in 4th spot in the table, which means that they avoid a pesky playoff in February. A 2-legged playoff means they go straight through to the last 16, which will take place in March, and those games that they'll face in the last 16 can be one of 4 teams. So it'll either be Real Sociedad, it could be back to Galatasaray, it could be AZ Alkmaar again, or it could be Midtjylland of Denmark. Personally, I'd love to go to San Sebastian, so I'm hoping for Real Sociedad. Spurs fans maybe less so. Well, they might want a trip there, definitely, but I'm not really sure who you'd pick from that lot, perhaps. Galatasaray was a very difficult game in the group stage or league phase, so perhaps Alkmaar instead, but we'll see what happens on that front. Like I say, this wouldn't be Spurs this season without some bad injury news, or some injury news to sort of take a dampen off things, and this time it was Radu Dragusin's turn to get injured. Happened in the second half. He actually came on as a second half sub at half time, and on 66 minutes he goes or just before that, he goes to try and make a clearance with his as ball was going out the pitch after just sort of flying for a ball, and seems to twist his knee. He goes down, has some treatment, comes back on, but then goes back down straight away, and Holber's off. And Ange afterwards said he wasn't quite sure, he didn't look good, but they've got to basically wait on information there on Dragusin and hope he's okay. But the way it's been going this season with Tottenham, you wouldn't guarantee it, so fingers crossed on his point of view. And actually Ange even made, you might have seen, I think the cameras picked up on it, he was actually asked about it in the press conference afterwards. You've made a bit of a joke about the amount of injuries by pretending to do his own hamstring at one point, which sort of sums up how it's going. But overall, really good night, showing the quality, I suppose, of the academy. I'm not sure you can rely on them week in, week out in the Premier League, but it shows that there are some good talents coming through, and just a wonderful night all round on that front. I suppose to sort of round it off, there's a bit of transfer talk. So, as it's widely reported now, Spurs have made a £50 million approach, huge amount of money for Matthias Tell, 19-year-old French striker at Bayern Munich, who Harry Kane rates really highly and who wants to leave Bayern. It seems like at this stage they're in talks. I wouldn't go so far as saying it's definitely a deal agreed. There's a lot of speculation about verbal agreement. I'm not sure about that yet, maybe. But it seems like it's down to Tell, who's got a lot of options. He's got clubs in France, clubs in Germany, the likes of Chelsea, Aston Villa, Man United are also interested. So it's whether he's sold on the Spurs move or not. So hopefully, from Tottenham's perspective, they can convince him. That's one to watch, definitely. There was a bit of mention about Johan Vester the other day. Did some checking out on that, and I'm very sure. I think that there has been no, at least official approach from Tottenham to Brentford on his front, so doesn't seem to make a lot of sense given his age profile anyway. But I'd be surprised if that one were to happen, to be fair. So I'd probably rule that out, despite hearing sort of reports to the contrary on that front. They are looking to bring in one player, but he's not for the first team today. Daniel Batty of Man City, a midfielder. He's 18 perhaps. Looks like a free transfer with sort of add-ons and other sort of maybe later sort of clauses to come into it later on. So he's like to come in, but he's not one for the first team right now. But apart from that, just a great night. And it just sort of underlines there's so much still on the table for this season. I mean, yes, the league is a nightmare, and it's about staying up on that front, but they're still in all the competitions. They made it through to the last 16 in Europe, get their players back, maybe add some more, and things can still happen. And as Ange said throughout, and he's consistently said throughout this whole season, he's talked about the fact that there's growth in amongst all this adversity his team is going through, and he really does feel it's going to come to fruition. that's a final point to end on, although I have just forgotten to mention his comments on Tell, because he was asked about him, so I will end with that. He was asked about if we can hear anything about Tell. Unsurprisingly, it's very rare that managers talk publicly about players they haven't signed yet. He said, there's nothing, I can't tell you anything about Tell. Other people are working in the background, and he was just preparing the game tonight, and as he's consistently said, he'll wait for them to do their jobs and see what they can come up with. And if there's some news, he'll wait to hear it. So fingers crossed we all wait to hear something on that front. I'll be doing a video after the press conference tomorrow. Let's see if anything's changed by then. Obviously a massive week coming ahead with Brentford away on the weekend, which is a tough game at the best of times, but maybe a chance for Tottenham to arrest their league slump. Transfer deadline day on Monday. Then we've got Liverpool, obviously arguably the biggest game of the season, in the second leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final, and then finally the FA Cup quarter-final, Aston Villa. Huge week lies ahead, both for Postecoglou and Tottenham. And tonight was a good win, a very good win, that hopefully can give them the springboard to having a really positive week on all of those fronts. But let's see. Cheers, guys.